everyone. So you can't read it there, but tonight I just want to dive in and talk about perspective. It's at the foundation of our experience of life every day. It's individual and at a cultural level. It's the lens we use to filter the sea of vibrations we're bobbing around in. We each have our own that we get through our individual life experiences. It can be shifted from a book, the death of a loved one, hearing a song, or seeing an image like this one with the Northern Lights from the International Space Station. We're also tapped into a deeper cultural narrative that we're not usually aware of most times. It's in our heads, and it tells us the difference since we're born from right and wrong, what's desirable, what's possible and impossible. It also gives us answers to deeper philosophical questions like, where did everything come from? Or to tweet or not to tweet. It's all part of this zeitgeist that we're in right now at this time. Doesn't it seem like the world's a little bit strange right now? Like we don't really know what we're doing. We're making eyeglasses with holographic heads-up display and season 18 of Dancing with the Stars at the same time. It doesn't really add up. There's so many conversations out there, and I think we're all here for the same one. We're thirsty for information on this shift in consciousness. And it's such a profound thing. Where do you really start? Now, I'm really interested in it because there's a taboo, this whole shift in consciousness, and it's keeping this conversation in the dark, and it's holding the old perspectives in place, perspectives of fear that are responsible for war, for separation, for desecration of rainforests, and exploitation of animals, and things like that. And we need to turn the volume up on this type of a conversation so we can actually move forward into this new paradigm. Now, I want to share a bit about, in that theme, when my bubble popped and I was introduced to this conversation. Things are really unstable when you're questioning that old paradigm, and people don't really want you to do that because, when you're unstable, it's vulnerability, and vulnerability is not really tolerated. When people ask, how are you doing? We say, good, I'm fine. You don't say, who am I? Who are you? It's all an illusion. It's not really kosher. So you got to go with it. So basically, mine popped about 3 years ago this time. I landed in Africa and went through a 5-month journey through East and South. It was the story of my, what you call awakening or shift, or what I prefer, why I started cutting my own hair and joined group therapy. So on this, it was massive shifts in my own perspective. And two things, though I saw and did a lot of cool stuff, really shifted it. It was writing and reading. Writing mainly, I journaled almost every day. I not only took in all these new sights and sounds, but I took account of how I felt about them. My attitudinal reflexes, my beliefs. Who was I, and how did I come to be this way? And every day, I got to redesign those, reconstitute myself, and measure my progress. Another thing was reading. And this was my first guru. Marcus Aurelius, long since dead, 2nd century, but he wrote a book called The Meditations. And in it, what I really admired from him, the first thing that blew my mind was he illustrated how we resist things we can't change and create suffering for ourselves. Buddha's first rule, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you'll find strength. Or the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, therefore guard accordingly. I started to realize I create my own reality in a simple way, not the quantum way, but I choose the thoughts that I think. I've been that guy who walks outside and the first thing he starts resisting meteorological events. It's raining and I think, I don't have an umbrella, my socks are gonna get wet, I didn't plan for this, I'm gonna stay inside. What a waste of time. You gotta go with it. The second thing he really illustrated was really cool and really big, and it took me a couple years to kind of, settle into this one. And it was this idea that we're all part of this really cool web of just infinite universal energy. Non-duality, the idea that we emanate from the same source and therefore we are it. It's all the same. It's this perspective, that shift from fear to love that we're making right now that people aren't quite pinpointing. We're saying the Mayan calendar is ending and the poles are shifting and the Earth's vibration is changing, but really it's a revolution of the mind inwardly. And the best metaphor I could get to describe it was bubbles in a bottle of soda. Now, I know, but bubbles in a bottle of soda, I'll tell you why. We can obviously see that these bubbles are all part of the same liquid. But if we could put nervous systems and eyes and ears on each one, they would then look out and see, oh, I'm different from that bubble, and that bubble's a different color, and all things like that. But they're all in the same medium. They just can't see it. So if we zoom out from our own perspective like us, there's a medium here. I'm pushing around molecules of all different types of elements, but we just don't see it. Like you and I, we're all part of the same soda, if you will. Now, that sounds all well and good, but to remember this here is a little more complicated. So I came back from my trip into this, and it was a time of a lot of turbulence for me. I didn't really know what to do with myself. I had discovered this new sense of who I was and what I was connected to, and I needed nothing to be happy. I could live in the woods, but I just couldn't do it. I needed to work a job. I had the same environment, the same family and friends who were going to tell me who I was and what I should want and what I should be. And I got angry. I got angry at myself. I got angry at the world around me for the way we were, why we were living this way. I didn't get it, and I wanted to go live in the woods and just forget it all. But I had to come to something. I had to ask a question. Would I really be happy if I went to the woods? 10 years from now, could I do it? Could I forget about those innate human needs of contribution and connection? The answer was no. So I let it go, and I embraced this passion with me that I wanted to share with other people. I couldn't walk away from this change I wanted to see in the world. I realized that I'm going to own a place and I'm going to make it. How now, brown cow? Just trying to remember where I was going with that. Right. Yeah. And finally, this guy, Jeremy Rifkin, just to kind of solidify this point a little bit more, wrote an awesome book called The Empathic Civilization, and he grows to this point that in order for humanity to transcend, to get to the next level of all the obstacles we have in our old perspective, all the conflicts in the world, to transcend it really, we got to get down to this place where we extend our empathy, our love to all people and all creatures on the planet and treat this one biosphere we have as our equal own. You know, dissolving borders between race and nationality and species. If we can simply understand that we don't need as much as advertisements tell us we do, if we can start seeing the sacredness in a leaf, in a cup of tea, in another person's eyes, then the shift is going to take care of itself. If you're in this kind of a shift, you're having trouble, just always remember the message I want to put out is you don't have to think about or change the entire world. Just yourself, and the rest will follow. Thank you.